Thanks, Nick. Hi, David. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. You?
Yeah, good, thank you. I'm just keen to know, in terms of this competition, what it does for these youngsters in terms of a pathway to the first team.
I think the competition challenges the youngsters. Obviously, they're playing against players that are at a very, very good level. Playing at a club that obviously, throughout the programme, the competition so far, they've challenged us in different ways. Obviously, Seville are a very well-known club, and we've seen quite a bit of them, and we're very much liking them to Atletico Madrid, who obviously we played a couple of years ago in the same competition. So it'll be a tactical challenge, very much so, but hopefully, obviously, in a football contest as well, that we'll shot well against each other.
How does this differ from the two previous games against Hammarby and the team from Sofia?
Well, listen, the Hammarby game, obviously, they're the champions of Sweden. It was a competition. We knew they were a good team. We'd watched quite a bit of them. You look at Sofia, I think probably Hammarby are slightly ahead of them in the way that the game's panned out. I think this one will probably closer to Hammarby, particularly the second leg. They very much made the game out of possession, a 1v1 type competition. So we need to be prepared for a lot of pressure when we have possession of the ball, particularly when we're trying to build. But they're very, very technically gifted as well, so we know it's going to be a tough competition. But it's a one-off game. We've got the home advantage in this scenario as well, so we hope to hopefully try and take advantage of that situation as well.
Hi David, you spoke there about it being a tactical challenge tomorrow. Can you outline what you're expecting from the opponents tomorrow evening, or afternoon I should say?
Well, listen, we've looked at the way that they play. We looked at where we think their individual kind of domination, or where they're trying to dominate individual moments in certain positions of the pitch. We've looked at how they'll try and move and rotate in certain areas of the pitch as well, and how that might challenge us when we don't have possession of the ball. So we need to make sure we're structured and ready to deal with that. But equally, when we do get possession, we've identified certain situations, certain areas of their team we can look to try and exploit. So that's what we have to do. It's good for the players to see them focused on that, because they've been very much listening intently and trying to take on board what we're saying and try and bring that onto the training pitch, particularly over the last 2 days as well. So there's different scenarios we see developing, but we've very much looked at them and we've tried to pass that information on to the players already.
And can I ask as well about how the new philosophy and playing style seen at first team level is filtering down to you guys, and also what part Zeb Jacobs has in that? I know he's been in the building for a few weeks now.
I think going for the first team in terms of passing down, yeah, of course, listen, we're the B team at the club, and we have to try and make sure we use as much of that information as what the first team do as we possibly can. You'll see in the first team at different moments have changed and tweaked different games depending on the level of opposition. So we very much would do the same as well. So you will see some similarities, we would hope, but that's up to us to try and make sure in the game environment, in that one individual game, that we try and make sure we recognise where it's best suited, where we can go and play the way we want to play, and some of that, as I say, will come through from a first team perspective as well. As far as Zeb is just in the door, but I also work closely with Zeb. He's not really working closely at the B team at this current time. Most of his attention at this current time is down at the sort of youth development phase and the foundation phase. So, but as I say, we're working closely with him as an individual, and we're looking forward to seeing that develop through as time progresses.
Afternoon, David. How much of a disruption to preparation for this game was there, given the late call-off of the game against Stalbiti Star on the Friday evening? How has that affected things in terms of your preparation for this?
It's not affected us, because what we did, we just then put our attention immediately onto what we had today. The game would have been good to get some minutes in some of the guys that maybe needed that, or one or two coming back from injuries. But what we did, we quickly adapted and made sure we got a session in place quite quickly to allow that to almost replicate what we needed for these players. But then quite quickly, as I say, after that, from the Sunday, Monday, it's very much about what we needed from a tactical perspective as much as anything else, and trying to get that into the guys' heads. So didn't really disrupt us. At the time, it's a little bit frustrating because you want the game to play, you're prepared to go, you've done all the work for that game. It didn't happen, but we can't fix that, we can't change that. We've got to make sure our attention's now where it needs to be.
As part of that preparation for the players in terms of getting ready for this game, how much information you've been able to gather in terms of what you expect from Sevilla? How easy is that been to get in terms of tactics or specific players?
Yeah, listen, fairly straightforward. We've got as much as we think we need. Listen, as I say, we can only take from what we've seen from the games. How they come and go against us, we don't know that yet. We don't know what they know about us. We don't know, how much they'll adapt what they do against us. So we can only see what we've done, and we've managed to get decent footage in certain games and previous games that they've played. So listen, we've used that, but as I say, all that information is not so much, it's only about creating awareness. We don't overload the information to the players. We give as much as we feel they need and what they think will benefit from. But other than that, we try and make as much as we are, or what the game to be is about us. So even when we start talking about Sevilla, it's not just about what they do, it's what they do, but how we then go and do our work against that, with and without the ball. So that's the focus, that's what it's always been. We won't change that, we won't make it indifferent in any individual game, but we'll make sure what the players need to know, the information exists, but we'll turn that to us and make sure we try and use that for us.
Hi David, just wondering on a kind of broader scale, what kind of these matches and the experience that they bring, how do they help in the pathway to the eventual first team? We've seen a few players obviously involved already this season.
I think when you get to the end of the season, David, you start to review the whole season as a package and work out where the challenges have been and how they've helped develop the players. But I think when you look at it now, quite clearly, we can look at the Hammarby game, we can look at the Sofia games. In fact, if we go to Hammarby on an individual basis, the home game, I thought we were very dominant. I thought we had most of the possession. I thought we created most of the chances. I thought we were excellent on turnovers. We got quick regains, and that put Hammarby under a lot of pressure. And in fact, 3-0 probably was a little bit kind in that game. But if I flip it to the second game, it was a completely different scenario. Hammarby were really aggressive, and I mean that in a way of out of possession, they almost made it 1v1. So anytime we had possession of the ball, there was always somebody up, they were close, they were making it difficult for us. And any pass we made, there was somebody jumping on that as well. So we had to be very good dealing with the ball under pressure. So there were two very much different games. Now, I know we won that game 2-1, but when you looked at over the course of the game, it was we earned the 2-1, not by dominating the game by possession, not by cutting them open, but by being good defensively, by being good under pressure, but not throughout the full game. We had you seen the players learn as that game was developing. You seen our forward players, particularly that night. I remember back, there was Tony Weston started with Alex Lowry and Ross McCallum. So they developed as the game was growing, recognising once we broke the pressure, we had to find ways to retain possession and find ways to go and support that play. So that'll be important again. And you asked the question about how that's helped to get develop players towards first team. Listen, you can look at Alex, you can look at Leon, both of which have managed to find a way and at the first team squads and obviously make their debuts in recent times. And if this has played a part in that, which I'd like to think it has, then fantastic. Long may that continue. That's why we crave these games. We've done it in a kind of friendly environment. We played Manchester United recently as well, but nothing beats going to a competitive environment in this type of game against a top European opposition and challenging the players and coaches to be at their very best and adapt and adjust to the situation.
And do you think is there a noticeable kind of impact when you see players be kind of involved in a first team and then come back into the kind of youth setup? Is there an impact there that you see, just I suppose a buzz or something from kind of getting that chance?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I've seen Alex come back into the group, Leon come back into the group. We've got Charlie McCann, although Charlie's not eligible for this game. He's bouncing between the two squads at the moment as well. They come back, and we always challenge them to come back and train and play at the first team level, and then challenge others to get close to that as well. That's what we want to do. We want to try and make sure we take every learning opportunity to maximise each moment. So yeah, listen, Alex has done really well, and the games that he's played, it's obviously still part of the group there as well, and we're very fortunate that he's going to be part of the group for tomorrow as well. So we'll look forward to that, and hopefully he'll challenge himself to make sure whatever he's learned, and Leon, as I say, they come back and it comes through within the performance.
Hello there.
Hey, Mark.
Talking about how difficult the pathway to the first team can be, and obviously, say over the last 10 years, we've changed with reserve teams, under 19s, under 21s. How have you found with the bedding in of the B team allied to your competitive fixtures in Europe? How have you found that settling down with the team? Do you feel that you're actually able to develop the players, or are you more kind of, it sound a bit strange, but a bit more game focused than development focused?
Mark, it's a good question, because I think there is a lot of games to be played, and as you said, it is a competitive programme that we're now involved in. But I think our focus as coaches is very much still about the development, and we try and maximise every opportunity where we possibly can. So the games are the games, but we do have a lot of opportunities in the training pitch and around the training facility to maximise the player development. Obviously, we have got the B team, which is predominantly under 19s, under 18s, some under 17s in there. there are players that are too old for that and beyond that stage just now, maybe going on loan at this current time. But I think what's been really positive with the whole experience is the ones that are still in this group in the building just now. We spoke there about the three lads, Alex, Charlie and Leon particularly, that these guys have managed to get opportunities with the first team because they're still in this building. They're still getting challenged with us in our programme that we have, in our training programme, very much individually driven there as well, to try and make sure that when the opportunity and the doors open at first team level, then these guys are ready to go. And we'd like to think, in recent weeks we're seeing that these guys are pushing for that. It's up to them now, and it shouldn't be easy, Mark. I think getting to a first team should be difficult, it should be challenging because we've got top players there. So when these guys go and show well as they have done in recent weeks, of course it's very pleasing when you see that happen as all the staff that work with these guys in recent years and recent times. But it's about trying to get them to stick as well, so that's the next challenge into it as well, and then not just sticking, what's coming behind that as well. So it's an ongoing challenge, it'll never go away, and I don't just mean for us to try and develop the players, but even the players that are getting closer to it, because they'll always feel that challenge should exist, and hopefully, as I say, over time they will stick and get more and more opportunities.
That's kind of the on-field challenge. With the change in the UEFA compensation rules, with the problem we've seen with a lot of English teams, there's so much money that they're effectively warehousing players. How much does that fit into you? And do you find that having a facility like Auchenhowie and the sharing with the first team, and is that how you hope to manage a lot of these guys who are coming through and maybe stop their heads getting turned?
I'm quite fortunate, Mark, that I don't get too much or get too close to that type of scenario. I leave that to others in different roles within the club, which is good for me. I get to focus a lot just on the individual and the group development as well. But I like to think what we have here. You spoke about the facility, you spoke about getting access and get close to the first team. I think the relationship that we have with the staff in the academy and the first team staff that have come in has been very strong and very good, very close. So the closer that is, the easier we hope to make the transition from academy to first team. But I like to think what we'll try and do individually for the players. I look and speak to some of the players that we have brought in different clubs, and not just ones that have signed it. I'm talking trialists as well. I like to think what we have as a programme, they can see that we will challenge the players to develop. We'll very much give them individual support so that they get the best opportunity to go to the next part of their journey. So we like to think what we have in place does exist, and as I say, we can put everything in place for them. We can give them as much individual support through football in terms of the coaches, the analyst team, the sports science team, the medical team. We've got a lot in house that's there for the individual players, but ultimately to get and stick to the first team, it then at some point has to come from them. They've got to have that intrinsic individual drive to separate themselves from others, to push themselves and recognise they're always chasing somebody, and equally there's always somebody coming behind them to try and get their position as well. That's the group and that's the stage that these guys are mostly going to be at. It isn't going away, it will continue to increase, and we'll just keep trying to push and encourage that these guys are ready to go.